Today, on episode 31 of the Fit Stoic podcast, excellence worthy of emulation. Today we're going to look at the difference between achieving a goal and achieving a goal by any means necessary. And we'll also look at how to be most helpful to others in the gym and in life. All right, welcome to the show. I'm Corey Samuelson. So I think this is the longest chapter from the Gymchiridion so far. I think the last episode I was mentioning that it was the shortest chapter, and now we are getting into some longer chapters. So let's get right into it. This is chapter 24. Begin quote. You help others the most by being a model of excellence worthy of emulation. A good end by unworthy means is never justified. Know your purpose and the means become self-evident. Then others learn just by seeing you in action. There's a difference between achieving a goal and achieving a goal by any means necessary. Take a simple example such as doing a standing barbell bicep curl. When done with excellent technique, the body is braced and the only movement is flexion and extension of the elbows. It is a strict movement. There will be some shift in the center of gravity, but the torso will remain tall and vertical. If the goal changes from building the strength of the biceps to moving the weight by any means necessary, the common cheat is to extend the spine and lean back. This moves the weight past the biceps sticking point and completes the rep. Success. Or is it? Now the work is being done by the shoulders and the posterior chain. The biceps, the original target of the exercise, have become a secondary consideration. Any exercise can be done with the goal of just moving the weight. But when you are training, how you do the exercise is more important than just moving the weight. The movement is paramount. Competition may preclude excellent technique, but when training, we are striving to ingrain the movement pattern. The chaos of competition has its own challenges, but when in the gym, the resistance is incidental. It's the excellence of the movement that matters. That's what is being trained. That, and choosing excellence as our standard in the first place. End quote. There's quite a bit in this chapter, so I'm going to go through it. Not exactly piece by piece, but in quite a bit of detail. So, in the first line, you help others the most by being a model of excellence worthy of emulation. That came first because I think that's almost the most important concept to take from this chapter. If we are trying to help somebody else, we can give them information, we can share, well, this is what I did, and etc., etc. But the best way for that individual to actually learn is to watch you in action, if they have a similar goal to yourself. So if they see you going about your craft, for example, if you are an athlete, let's just pick gymnastics, for example, and the individual that you are trying to help is also wanting to be a gymnast. Regardless of what level you are at, if you are ahead, which is likely, otherwise, why would they come to you for help? The best thing that you can do is show how you go about your practice. Show how you compete. And there's an interesting phenomenon when this does occur. It helps not only the person who is observing. They get to watch. They get to make note. They know exactly where they may be failing, and they get this example that you, because you're more skilled, you've been at it longer, whatever the reasons are, you are ahead of them on the path of gymnastics mastery. The other thing, though, that occurs here is that you, knowing that you are being observed, that you are now being an example of a higher degree of excellence for somebody else, you will actually up your game as well. So if you go through life considering that others are watching, whether they are or not, whether anybody else cares or not, but if you go through your life in even the most mundane acts that you consider important to be excellent according to your own standard, you will up your game. You will actually pay more attention to what you're doing. You will be more aware of how you're experiencing those moments. As I sit here right now, and I imagine that maybe there's somebody sitting behind me who's never done a podcast and thinks, cool, Corey's got his own podcast. And I realize that I am in the very, very early stages of doing this type of work. So my level of excellence here and my level of expertise in doing a podcast is certainly not something that I would even necessarily recommend to someone who's getting started. And that's okay, because according to this imaginary person behind me, they haven't done anything and I have. So I actually do have some expertise that I can share. But back to the point, if I imagine that somebody is observing me, I actually become a little bit more aware of what I am doing and how I'm going about this episode itself. So it actually puts a little bit more pressure, but it's a good pressure. It's that eustress. It's that good kind of stress that helps get you into the flow state. So if things are starting to get a little too routine, you can put a little bit more pressure on yourself to up your game by simply imagining that someone is looking to you as the example. So a really good place to do it is when you are exercising. So if you imagine that somebody is watching you and they are trying to learn how to do the exercise that you are doing right in that moment, you will do it much better than if you're just letting your mind wander, just going through reps, just like, I got to get through this workout because I got to get through this workout. When you imagine that someone else is looking up to you and looking to you to help them become more excellent in their own efforts, you will become more excellent in your efforts. So you up your game, and when there is somebody that you're actually helping, you help them as well. And by being more excellent, by considering, especially if you're just doing this as an imaginary exercise, if you are just pretending that you are being observed, you'll be living an excellence that is worthy of emulation. This is a really good way of becoming more excellent in those areas of your life where you are really focusing your attention. It's probably a little overwhelming to do this every single moment. But there are areas of your life, I know there are in my life, where I know that I'm not doing as well as I want to be doing, as I prefer to be doing. So in those areas, when I remember to imagine that I'm being observed, or that I am being an example to someone who isn't even there, then I become more excellent in those moments. That's the first takeaway here. Live your life as if you are exemplifying a level of excellence that is worthy of emulation, that is worthy of someone else looking to you as an example that they can follow, that they should follow. The next big takeaway from this chapter is that a good end, a good result, a good goal achieved is never justified by unworthy means. In other words, if you have to break your own standards of excellence to achieve a goal, then even having achieved it, you've lost. You've made yourself less than you were, having not achieved the goal. From the Stoic strength perspective, the only thing that you actually have is your character. That's the only thing that cannot be taken from you. Your possessions, levels of achievement that you've reached, goals that you've achieved, it's not the material of any of that that is the prize. It's the person that you have become as a result of doing what you needed to do according to your standards of excellence to achieve those goals. So quite often people will throw out the example of, well, if somebody steals $1 million, it's just as good as earning it. If nobody finds out, what's the harm? Well, the harm is that the person who has stolen that $1 million always knows that they stole it. They know that they don't actually deserve that money. They didn't earn it by creating any value. They merely took it from somebody else. And even though no one else will ever know, they've damaged their own estimation of their own character. And I know again that people argue that some people just don't care about their character. Fine. I care about my character. I hope that you care about your character as well. I find it highly unlikely that you don't care. Otherwise, you wouldn't be listening to a podcast dedicated to virtuous self-control, to excellence of character, to being and striving to be an excellent human being. I'm not speaking to the people who have no interest in that. And there are people like that in the world. But for you, for me, for the people who do care, if you damage your own character in the pursuit of achieving a goal, then even having achieved it, you've lost. You've lost something. You may have achieved a level of excellence in the material world or in reputation, where others see you as being something other than what you are, because hypothetically, let me put it to myself, so I'm not speaking about you. If I cheat to achieve a goal and no one knows that I cheated, so that my reputation now has been heightened in the eyes of others, then I may have a reputation that is better, but that's only everybody else, because my reputation with myself has been damaged. So it really doesn't matter what everybody else thinks. And that goes either way, obviously. If they despise me, but I still hold myself in esteem, then other people's opinions don't matter. But the same thing on the other side is that even if everyone else thinks I'm a great person, that I'm an excellent example, that I am someone to be emulated, if I have done what I consider to be less than excellent to achieve that goal, even if I get all kinds of adulation and respect, it is all for naught, because there's a disparity between how other people see me and how I see myself. Even though everyone else may have utter sincerity in their love and their adoration, I'm going to disconnect myself from that experience because I know the truth, even if no one else does. So I hope that's clear. The next big talking point here is that there's a difference between achieving a goal and achieving it by any means necessary. This references, obviously, that the ends don't justify the means that I was just talking about. But it goes a little bit further and it gets a little bit more into the details. So the example of the bicep curl, we're talking about an exercise technique. So if I am targeting my biceps and I am doing a barbell curl, the point of choosing the barbell bicep curl is I'm thinking this is a good exercise. It's going to build my biceps if that's my goal. It's going to make them stronger. It's going to make them larger so I look good in a t-shirt. Whatever the justification for why I want to use the barbell curl. I'm targeting the biceps specifically. As I'm doing the set, for example, I have good form. 4th repetition, 5th repetition, good form. And then maybe by the 9th, and I'm shooting for a set of 10, maybe by the 9th repetition, I hit that sticking point where the biceps have been fatigued beyond their ability to pull that bar any further. If I stop it there, then I've used excellent form. But if I think to myself, I need to get 12 reps, whatever the cost, and I start to lean into it and I start to throw my body back, then, just as I described, I'm actually no longer targeting the biceps. I'm just moving the weight to move the weight from point A to point B. So I've lost the path at this point. The biceps may still be getting some stimulation, fair enough, but I am not doing a bicep curl. Now I'm just moving the weight. This can be seen in many, many different exercises by tons of people in the gym. I'm not throwing any judgments out there. Sometimes that is the idea, and that's why I mentioned competition. When you're competing, if I'm trying to get 10 curls and there's no rule against you can't lean back, you can't break form, and I'm trying to win a competition, then doing what I need to do to get the weight from point A to point B at the top, we'll say, I'm going to do what I can. And this as well can be witnessed in many competitions. Technique goes out the window because nobody really cares about the technique at that point. They just care about, I need to move this weight from point A to point B to win. I need to move myself from point A to point B to win, or whatever it happens to be. And as long as it's within the rules, then any kind of technique counts. If it's outside of the rules, they'll be disqualified. And everyone is aware of that. But if there's this little gray area, then all of a sudden there might be leaning back, there might be jumping, there may be kipping, there may be all kinds of different things. And that's the difference between training and competition. When you are training, the weight is incidental to the movement because the movement is the important part. That's what you're trying to train. That's what you are conditioning by being strict in your training. It's the movements that the exercises are designed to exploit, meaning it's the movement that targets the muscles that you're training. Now, the bicep curl isolates the biceps for the most part, but there are other movements like running, for example, where there are a lot of muscles that are working. And in that scenario, there are optimal techniques as well, so that the efficiency of the stride, the way the arms swing, how you're breathing, the pattern of your breathing. All of these things also will lend itself to the excellence of the run as well. So depending on your running technique, you can get a little bit more excellent with it, especially if you're trying to look after your joint health, doing your best to remain injury-free so you can get the benefits of the running. What I'm suggesting with this chapter is that the greatest gift that you can give to those around you and to yourself is to live with an excellence that is worthy of emulation. True leadership is leading by example. Giving people mere words to follow doesn't inspire them. It may for a moment, but the way that somebody lives their life, that somebody can see day after day after day, like a child with a parent. Parents will tell their children things and suggest that they do things this way or do things that way. But kids just have an innate instinct almost to ignore the words and watch the actions, to discount what they're being told and to focus instead in on the behavior that they observe. And that tendency continues in life. That lesson that we learned in childhood, that actions speak louder than words, sticks with us. And when we see somebody living a life that we consider excellent, that we hold as an aspirational level for ourselves, that's who we pay attention to. And that's who will shape our behavior. So that may be a friend, or it may be someone that we don't even know, but we see the stories about their life on the big screen, or we read their life story. And even if, obviously, we don't know everything, we just see what we can see. But if they are actually worthy of emulation, and we consider them to be worthy, then that's all that we need to make our choice to emulate them. So that's the bottom line here. Because of the human tendency to ignore words and instead to focus and believe deeds, the greatest gift that you can give, first to yourself, but in the end to others, is leading by example with your behaviors, by the choices that you make, those enacted choices, those embodied choices, as you strive to create the circumstances and the excellence that you want to experience in your own life, so that your excellence then expands just beyond your own experience, and it becomes something that other people look toward as an example for themselves. Even if you're just quietly going on about your life, but you're living it according to your own standard of excellence, and you're doing the very best that you can, that has a ripple effect. Your example lights the fire of somebody else's standard. It elevates their experience of what's possible as well. Even those small, mundane moments, that can be very inspiring to someone else who is on the same path. It doesn't need to just be those heroic moments of reaching the pinnacle during a mountain climbing expedition. That heroic, wow, amazing human effort and achievement. It's in those quiet moments when it's easy to not live up to one's standard of excellence. Those, I think, have more power because they are more apparent. They occur much more often. Thanks for spending time with me today. I hope that today's episode has given you something to think about in your own life, and that it helps you become more excellent, not only for yourself, but for those who may be watching what you're doing as well. If you like what you heard, please do share it with someone that you believe might like it too. This is Corey. Whatever your path, operate with excellence.